B. I'm Ian Begley, SNY NBA Insider. We're going to be talking Knicks-Cavs, Game 1, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Got two great guests with me. Got Stefan Bondy, New York Daily News, Knick beat writer, and Chris Fedor, the excellent Cavs writer, I should say, from Cleveland.com. We're going to break it all down here for the next half hour or so. Steph, I'm going to start with you. You were at practice yesterday. What did you hear about Julius Randle? What do you think?
Still no contact, which is a little bit concerning. I had heard earlier in the week that they were confident he was going to play in Game 1, but the fact that he has not been clear for contact is obviously troubling. It's a sprained ankle. I don't think he needs to go through a full contact practice in order to play, but obviously that's concerning. And Thibodeau, per usual, didn't give much of an update. It's more like, I'll wait for medical and for Julius to decide for himself. Right. We haven't been able to talk to Julius. So my guess is when they have to put his injury report out at 5 p.m. today, it's going to say questionable. That's a guess.
No, I would guess the same thing. And I would also guess that no matter how he's feeling going into tomorrow, he'll end up being a game time decision. That would be my best guess. I think it makes sense for them to want to drag it out as long as they can, so you don't give Cleveland an extra opportunity to prepare. But do you think if Julius goes at less than 100%, is that a move that you would make if you were the Knicks, or would you wait until he's 100%?
Oh, hell, I mean, shit, it's the playoffs. If you're not 100, I think we talked to Reggie Miller yesterday. Nobody's 100% right now. Right. And I understand a sprained ankle can be problematic. We haven't seen Randle, so we don't know if he's limping or anything. But if he can play, I mean, it's the playoffs. This is what you've waited 2 years to get back to this spot. You never know when it can happen again. Julius Randle has been playing since 2014, and he's only been to the playoffs once before. So, yes, if Randle can give it a go, I would. And I understand the other part of it. You get an extra 3 days rest if you wait for Game 2 and wait till he's 100% healthy. But, it's a sprained ankle, and you tape it up, and if he can play, he plays.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they go, because they do have that break, right, between Games 1 and 2. But you don't want to give any ground in this series when the teams are evenly matched. But I think the Cavs, are a level above the Knicks going into this thing. That's my read, at least. But Steph, for you, go back to the beginning of the year. Did you think the Knicks would get to this place?
No. Well, and I think two things happened. One is Jalen Brunson was incredible. It was better than any of us expected. Certainly me. I thought $104 million was an overpay. It turned out to be a drastic underpay. And Julius Randle, coming off the season that he did last year, I don't think any of us expected that he would rebound to this extent. So those two things happened. And, Emmanuel quickly obviously took a huge leap forward. Mitchell Robinson has shown that he can play the role that he's been given pretty well. And so, I didn't expect all those things to come together, certainly not this quickly. But here we are. They're back in the playoffs. And I know there's some pushback when you say, hey, they're ahead of schedule because 2 years ago they were the 4th seed. Now they're the 5th seed. But considering where they were last season, I'd say you can't consider anything but this season being a plus and a positive experience and a positive surprise.
Yeah, and I think you look back at the last 2 years, those rosters, this roster to me is in much better shape in terms of being able to build off of it. You got a foundation here where you can decide which way to go with certain players, certain positions, and you have some flexibility. You have some players that are attractive on the trade market. So I think this roster, you look at it that way, is also ahead of those last two rosters. We're going to bring in Chris Fedor, Cleveland.com, excellent Cavs writer. Chris, Isaac Okoro, where is he right now, and what do you think about his status for Saturday?
Yeah, everything that I've heard at this point is that Isaac's going to be able to play on Saturday. He wants to play. And part of the reason why they've taken the approach that they have with him is because they just didn't have anything to play for at the end of the regular season. They didn't want to push it. They were able to express caution. And I think based on everything that I've heard and everything that we've seen from Isaac getting shots up after practice, taking a little bit of contact yesterday. He's going to take a little bit more contact today at practice. I would expect him to be out there and be as effective as he possibly can on this achy knee.
And for the Knicks fan that's tuning in and maybe hasn't watched the Cavs a lot, how important is Okoro to what the Cavs do, particularly on the defensive end, where they were the #1 defensive rating team in the league this year?
It's funny because, Ian, at the beginning of the year, the Cavs were dabbling with different guys at small forward. Like Isaac was the incumbent starting small forward, but they had this training camp battle. And then Karis LeVert won the job because he was the best performer, and it didn't work. So midway through November, they decided to make the switch. They went with Lamar Stevens initially, and then in January, they settled on Isaac, finally. And I think Isaac has brought that starting five all together. He's a tough defender. He's somebody who's going to take the matchups against Scott Brunson, against guys like Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, those types of so that Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland don't have to take those matchups. And I think there's value in that just alone, because Darius and Donovan are so responsible for what the Cavs do on the offensive end. They expend so much energy at that end of the floor that they need a break defensively at times. And Isaac is able to take those kinds of matchups in the games against New York, in which Isaac's better. Jalen Brunson hasn't gone for 48 points, a career high. The numbers for Isaac against Brunson have been really, really promising for the Cavs. And they trust him a lot with those kinds of matchups. And if he's not out there, it's a completely different look for the Cavs defensively. They need him.
Such an important player in this series, regardless of whether you're looking at it from a Knick perspective or a Cav perspective. The health of Isaac Okoro and how effective he can be, I think, will go a long way in deciding this series. And then you look at the other matchups, I would assume Darius Garland would guard Quentin Grimes, and then Donovan Mitchell would guard RJ Barrett. Chris, am I right in assuming that? Do you think that's how it would go?
Yeah, I think that's probably how it would go, guys. Obviously, the Cavs are comfortable switching when they have their bigs, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. They feel like those guys can switch and they can handle themselves on the perimeter. They feel like Isaac Okoro can switch onto bigs, and he's tough enough and he's strong enough, and he can handle some of those guys in the post as well. So I think you're going to see switches throughout. I think you're going to see different defensive coverages throughout. I think you're going to see different guys matched up with different guys throughout the course of this series. But based on what we have seen at times in the regular season, and based on some of the matchups that Donovan has gotten against other players and Darius has gotten against other players, it makes the most sense for Donovan to go against RJ and for Darius to try and stay with Quentin Grimes and chase him around screens and things like that.
Hey, Steph, you had a story in the New York Daily News about a secret weapon the Knicks may have. Can you shed a little light on that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there was no assistant coach closer, or coach for that matter, closer to Donovan Mitchell when he was in Utah than Johnny Bryant. And when Johnny Bryant came over to the Knicks, that became one of the reasons why people thought that Donovan Mitchell would end up being on the Knicks. And you go through everything that Donovan Mitchell did to become the all-star that he is now. He's credited a lot of that to his development under Johnny Bryant. They became more than just coach and player. They became, mentor, friends, and everything in between. So when you have that type of insight into a player, that can do nothing but help. Certainly when you look at scouting reports and tendencies, and even beyond that, the demeanor of the player, what he likes to do in certain situations. When you have that type of insight, that will certainly be helpful for the Knicks. And Emmanuel quickly said as much when we talked about how helpful Johnny Bryant is in preparing for Donovan Mitchell.
Right. Yeah. Quickly was asked too, is Johnny going to share secrets? He said he didn't want to talk about it, but he did begrudgingly say, yeah, it's going to help. But I have to give credit though to the Knicks' entire coaching staff. Based on things that I've heard, those guys grind. Those guys really grind. Everybody on that staff churns like Tom Thibodeau churns. And so you look at up and down the bench, I think that whole staff deserves a lot of credit for where the Knicks are right now. But Chris, sticking with Donovan Mitchell for a second, where do you think he is with this team and going into this playoffs? Is this something where he looks at the Knicks and says, I want to take these guys out because I want the Cavs to win, but also because we're playing the Knicks and everything that went on last summer and all that? Or does he look at it as another series?
I think obviously there are emotional ties that anytime he plays against the Knicks. You saw that when he came back and he played at Madison Square Garden for the first time since all of the speculation in the offseason. He had more people at that game than game in his entire career, except for his opener as a rookie. So yeah, it's always going to be that attachment. But I get the sense that he is focused on doing what he thinks is best for the Cavs to win this series. That means he has to go out there and he has to try and score 40, then that's what he do. If that means he's got to get off the ball because the Knicks are sending 2 defenders at him, initiator, creator, facilitator, then I think he would be comfortable doing it as well. I think it's going to be fascinating to see just what kind of approach he's going to take in game 1, because everything that we saw from Donovan towards the end of the regular season, when the stakes mattered the most, when they were playing things for the first time as a group, right? He decided he had to go out and get it. He had to go out and win it for them. And I'm wondering if going into game 1, because Darius has never been in the playoffs, Isaac's never been in the playoffs, Evan Mobley's never been in the playoffs, Dean Wade's never been in the playoffs, Lamar Stevens, Jared Allen's only played 9 games in the playoffs in his career. I want Donovan, with all of his playoff know-how, going to look at it and say, out and set the tone in a different kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Donovan has something to prove here. I mean, he's been on great regular season teams in Utah that never got over the hump. But and then you look at what happened last season. He was outplayed by Jalen Brunson, and Jalen Brunson won that series. A lot of it without Luka Doncic. So now he gets a rematch. And I think Donovan Mitchell has something to prove in this series, especially going against Jalen Brunson.
Yeah, the narrative, people around the league when the Knicks were talking about trading for Donovan, people around the league that I spoke to that were against the Knicks giving up the entire world for Donovan Mitchell pointed out the playoff lack of success in terms of that Utah roster kind of being built to make long runs, and Mitchell not being able to carry them there. I didn't watch every game with Utah. I don't know how much was his fault, how much was other players' fault, but that became a narrative for people who didn't want the Knicks to go all in on Donovan Mitchell. And it's an important series too for the Knicks, I think. Look, I don't think that they lose this thing in 7 games, 6 games. Anybody over there is going to go crazy. But I think if they get swept, and are non-competitive in this series, I think this season's going to lose some luster. I think people are going to be upset over at 2 Penn Plaza because of how everything went down in the offseason. I don't think it really takes much away from the season because it doesn't change the fact that the Knicks are set up to build off of this group. But just the narrative and the way things happen in the offseason, Steph, what do you think the reaction would be internally if the Knicks were to get swept or losing 5 games and just not be competitive?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it wouldn't be good. And it becomes, whether they want to say it or not, it becomes a reflection on the decision not to go after Donovan Mitchell. And I agree with you in a lot of ways. They are set up to get the next star available. But it becomes problematic when you pitch that and you're like, well, we had a chance to get this star, and who else is going to become available that's better than the guy that just beat us in the playoffs? So, yeah, I mean, it's a faulty narrative, but it will take hold if the Knicks get pummeled here in this series. And certainly if Donovan Mitchell has a big one, you're going to be hearing a lot about that.
Yeah, I would be surprised if the Cavs just dominated the whole series.
Oh, I would too. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, me too. Chris, Darius Garland, can you shed a little light on his role with this Cavs team and what the role he played in the success that this club had in the regular season?
I think this is a fascinating dynamic, Ian, because this was Darius's team. This was his offense. He was the max player. And then all of a sudden, Donovan Mitchell comes, and Darius has to take a little bit of step back, and he's got to share the spotlight, and he's got to share the leadership responsibilities. He's got to share the offensive responsibilities. And he was willing to do that because all he cares about is winning, and he thought Donovan was going to make him a better player, and he thought he could make Donovan a better player. And it's been that way. Darius has been more efficient this year. Donovan has had the best year of his entire career in his first year with Cleveland. So Darius is somebody who he can score at all three levels. He has shown an ability to get teammates involved. He has shown an ability to break down defenders off the bounce and score creatively. Darius is a problem. And I think one of the things that could help him in the series against the Knicks is if you go back to last year's play-in tournament, Brooklyn and Atlanta targeted him. He was the top name on the scouting report. They threw everything at him. Some of the things that Darius had never seen before in his career, a level of attention that he had never seen before, because teams could do that because he didn't have a Donovan Mitchell out there sharing the court with him. Ricky Rubio had been traded. Karis LeVert was dealing with an injury, and he wasn't comfortable after the trade. Colin Sexton was out for the year. So everything fell on Darius. Going into the series against New York and going into the season with Donovan here, some of that pressure was lifted off of him, and you could tell how that freed him up on the offensive and the defensive end.
It's always impressive to me, at least, when somebody is the top, is the alpha, is the number one for a franchise, and a trade is made or a free agency signing is made, and that person takes a step back and allows that new free agent or the new guy they traded for to take that top spot. It's impressive to me. I don't think it's an easy thing. I think it's something that it's easy to overlook, especially from the outside, but I give Darius Garland a lot of credit for doing that. One thing that I think about just in this series is if Garland is matched up on Quentin Grimes, I wonder how much Grimes can take advantage when he gets the ball beyond the arc, shot fake, get to the rim. We've seen him do that an increasing amount over the course of the season, and it seems like something he's gotten comfortable with. So maybe that's something that the Knicks could take advantage of in that matchup. I'm not suggesting that Quentin could blow by Darius all the time, but it seems like when he gets the ball and the defense is tilted, they rotate back to him, he can get to the rim, and he's had success there. So I'm interested in Quentin Grimes in general. Steph, which Knick are you looking at in particular in this series? Somebody you'd say, okay, this player has to play well for the Knicks to do well.
All right, so I'm going to rewind 1 minute because when we were talking about the different assistant coaches and how they can help against Donovan Mitchell, Quentin Grimes, who will also be guarding Donovan Mitchell, did credit Darren Erman with preparing him as well. So I think that deserves to be said. And the one player I'm looking at is RJ Barrett. He is going – if the defenses are going to be focused so much on Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson, and you're going to put Donovan Mitchell on RJ Barrett, he needs to score. He's going to have open opportunities, and sometimes he makes them, and a lot of times he doesn't. So it's going to be which RJ Barrett are we going to get, and I think that is going to dictate a lot of what happens in this series. We've seen it with him. He gets to the hoop. He's been finishing a lot better when he gets there. It's the three-point shot that is still very unreliable, and I think he will have a lot of opportunities to take those open three-pointers.
Yeah. I think, Chris, I want to know for you, which Cav do you look at and you say, if this guy plays well, Cavs are going to have a success, but if he plays poorly, it's really going to impact them. Who is your player in Cleveland that fits that?
Most people around town will say Karis LeVert. I get it, right? Because he's the leader of the second unit, and the Knicks' second unit is very formidable, and they have maybe the sixth man of the year in Emmanuel Quickley. And Karis talked about it yesterday, how everybody around town since this series started has been saying to him, including the coaches on the Cavs, hey, the Knicks bench, it's one of the best benches in the NBA. And Karis said he's taking the matchup personally. So I get why people would say that. But for me, it's Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley is somebody who is going into the playoffs for the first time in his career, and there's uncertainty because of that. Now, he hasn't been rattled by anything throughout the course of his NBA career. He's always been able to rise to the moment. He's gotten this nickname fourth quarter Ev because he shines so much in the fourth quarter. But this is a guy who's going to be dealing with Julius Randle. This is a guy who's going to have to keep Mitchell Robinson off the offensive glass. And this is a guy who's probably going to be a primary playmaker, especially if the Knicks trap Darius or trap Donovan, and one of those two guys has to get it out of their hands. then it's Evan playing 4-on-3 in the pocket, and he's going to have to make the right decisions. So it's going beyond his defense. Obviously, everybody knows him for his defense, but his offense has evolved as this season has gone on. He's gotten a bigger role in the offense as the season has gone on, and he's going to have to be a reliable third option beyond Darius and Donovan for the Cavs to score enough and function enough offensively based on what the Knicks are probably going to do defensively to slow down Cleveland's backward.
How effective is he, Chris, as a passer on the interior? I kept hearing that he and Jared Allen have pretty good rhythm, getting the ball to each other on the inside. Darius Garland also great passer when he gets into the paint. How does Mobley handle that? Is he a decent passer?
He is a very good passer. He's a very good decision maker. Again, he doesn't get rattled by a lot of things. And if you think about him coming up, before he hit this massive growth spurt where he turned into like 7-foot Gumby, he was a guard. He could handle it like a guard. He could pass like a guard. And his dad, Eric Mobley, who's an assistant coach at USC, has been bringing him up with guard skills. So I think the Cavs are very confident in Evan's ability to be a passer out of the pick and roll. And JB Bickerstaff, and he's probably blowing a little bit of smoke here, but he has called Evan at this stage of his career the best big man pocket passing big that he's ever been around. So I think he's going to have to tap into that playmaking background that he's got and really help the Cavs offensively in this series.
So I think back to that Atlanta series for the Knicks last time they were in the playoffs. Mitchell Robinson's absence, I think, loomed large on both ends of the floor. He's healthy now. He's been a big factor in the Knicks' success. Steph, when you think about Mitchell Robinson, Jared Allen, and that matchup individually, how do you see it?
I mean, listen, Jared Allen is obviously a more versatile player, an all-star last year. Mitchell Robinson's role in this team, as he will tell you, is limited, and he will gripe about it on social media. But listen, he will – I mean, I understand the Cavs are big, and they will try to prevent the offensive rebounding advantage that the Knicks have. And it is a big – the offensive rebounding is a big reason why the Knicks offense is so efficient, because they get all these extra possessions. And Mitchell Robinson is the biggest reason why that happens. And it's not just because, you know, he's grabbing rebounds over smaller big men, and he won't be able to do that against Evan Mobley or Jared Allen. It's because of the way the Knicks offense works. They're getting these big guys out of position. And Mitchell Robinson is sneaking out underneath and grabbing these rebounds, and that's his role. That's his job. So I think if the Knicks offense is humming, if they're getting Evan Mobley and they're getting Jared Allen to come out to guard, to contest floaters, to contest guards and perimeter players and pick and rolls, then Mitchell Robinson is going to have a monster impact on this game, on this series, and on this game, because he will be able to offensive rebound, and that has been a big boost to the Knicks offense.
Yeah, and you look at the numbers. I mean, Cleveland has done well, not allowing a ton of offensive rebounds or second chance points. I think they're top 10 in both categories per 100 possessions. And so it's a strength against strength. The Knicks have scored a lot in the paint this season. They've gotten, you know, Brunson gets in the paint regularly, and they do a good job with that. So it's kind of strength versus strength there. Chris, what are the Cavs saying about defending the Knicks on the interior or trying to limit their offensive rebounds? Has anybody discussed that this week?
It is a key point of emphasis, because if you go back to the most recent meeting between the two teams on March 31st, now the Cavs didn't have Jared Allen in that game, and they didn't have Isaac Okoro in that game. But the Cavs were,
that's my opinion. Throw it out, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they were completely dominating on the glass.
Sorry, good.
I mean, plus 15 for the Knicks overall in rebounds and plus 13 on the offensive glass. So, yeah, you can throw it out, but it also lets the Cavs know what Mitchell Robinson is capable of, what Hartenstein is capable of, what Josh Hart is capable of. If you don't make that extra effort, if you don't put a body on a body, if you don't box out properly, this is the kind of team that is third in offensive rebounding that can really, really make you pay. And the Cavs have one of the best defenses in the NBA. Statistically, it is the best defense in the NBA in terms of defensive rating. And part of the reason for that is they finish those defensive possessions and they don't give up those second chance opportunities. So they're going to have to show, after guarding the Knicks for as long as they're going to have to guard them on one possession, they're going to have to show that they can finish that possession with the rebound. And that has been a big point of emphasis coming into this series.
Yeah, and when I say throw it out, I just mean that game to me doesn't have a lot of relevance when you talk about this matchup starting Saturday. No disrespect to what the Knicks did in that game. Jalen Brunson was fantastic. They got a win on the road. That's not easy. But I'm talking about when you're talking about game 1, Saturday, 6 p.m., I don't put a lot of stock into that game. Right now, we're going to go to Matt Spenley, social media guru at SNY. He's got a fan question for us. Matt, what's going on?
What's up, guys? All right. Fan question is from C Phoenix in the comments on YouTube asking, what will Obi Toppin have to overcome against the Cavs if Julius Randle doesn't play? Now, I'll kind of ask this question a little differently for you, Ian. How will Obi's role be if Randle's out? Because I think once you get to the playoffs, Julius's best skill is his shot making. And when the defenses tighten up, when things get tough in crunch time, I know Randle, his shot making comes up big. So how do you see Obi potentially playing in game 1 if Randle can't?
Yeah, I would be surprised if he got a lot of leak outs. I mean, he obviously is so good running the floor, but I think that maybe would get neutralized, especially these two teams play very slow, and I would assume the Cavs get back in transition. I know they've done a good job scoring in transition, but I would assume in this setting they will get back and they won't let Obi kind of get behind them and get easy baskets. So I think you might have to take that off the table, at least to the degree that he gets them in the regular season. And then to me, he shot the 3 pretty well at the end of this year. I think his shot, when he's getting in rhythm, getting regular minutes, his shot looks really good. I think rebounding is where I would look, and I think that's where the Knicks would have their eye on too, in terms of his ability to rebound the basketball. He's not going to rebound the way Julius Randle has rebounded on the defensive end, but how much can he give you there, and can it be anywhere near what Randle does to kind of offset the loss of Randle from a rebounding perspective? From the Cavs perspective, Chris, what are they doing in terms of Obi Toppin and Julius Randle? Are they preparing for both?
Well, kind of depends who you ask. We brought it up to Jared Allen yesterday and said, hey, man, there's a chance that Julius doesn't play in game 1. And he was like, wait, really? That's a thing? Seriously?
I saw that.
And then JB Bickerstaff has said they're prepared either way.
Okay.
And I think that's the way that the Cavs have to go about it. There's uncertainty when it comes to Julius. There is no specific clarity on whether he's going to be out there and how effective he's going to be. So I think the Cavs are prepared both ways, and they're going to have to be. And having this extra time in between the end of their regular season and game 1 on Saturday, I think has given them that extra prep time that is required with some uncertainty with the Knicks.
Yeah, and Steph.
And I think in that, I know we're throwing out that final regular season game, but Julius didn't play in that either.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Josh Hart finished the game at power forward.
Yep.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So Tibbs is definitely comfortable going that direction too, and he did not feel comfortable playing Obi big minutes in that game.
Right. That's right. Now, if Obi starts, though, Steph, what are you looking at for him in terms of what has to go well for the Knicks to play well?
Listen, the shot making is important. You mentioned it, and he's shown he can do it. But the way he's going to stay on the floor and the way that Thibodeau's going to let him stay on the floor is defense and rebounding. And that is, that has to be his emphasis. That's what he has to concentrate on. And it's a tough matchup for him. Evan Mobley would be a very tough matchup for him. I'd be interested to see if he'd be able to do that.
All right, Chris, I'm going to you. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Cavaliers win this series if. Can you fill in the blank for me?
Can I fill in multiple blanks?
Yeah, go ahead. Let it roll.
So I think if Donovan Mitchell is great, it has to start there because he's going to have to take a huge offensive burden with some uncertainty with their playoff newbies. If the Cavs can limit the second chance opportunities for the Knicks and finish defensive possessions and allow their number 1 defense to play that kind of way. And if they find a way to get enough production from their quote-unquote others, like Karis LeVert, Ricky Rubio, whoever is the 8th man, whether it's Jetty Osman, Dean Wade, Lamar Stevens, Danny Green. The Cavs have been built on the strength of a formidable starting 5. It's as good of a starting 5 as you're going to find in the NBA. It's as productive as a starting 5 that you're going to find in the NBA. But they're going to have to find somebody else to supplement that kind of production. And I'm looking at Karis LeVert. If he can do that and play the way that he did in March, that would be a big, big boost for the Cavs in this series against the Knicks, especially because the Knicks have somebody like Quickly coming off the bench and Josh Hart.
Yeah. And Steph, for you, I'm going to throw the question to you. Knicks win this series if – what do you think?
All right, I'm gonna go short here because I think we're running out of time. But listen, the NBA today is about shot making. It's a make or miss league, and with the way the 3-pointers are being jacked up, it really depends on if you're hitting your shots or not. And the Knicks have become very good at creating 3-pointers for themselves. It's become a hallmark of their offense. And if you have guys like Quentin Grimes and RJ Barrett hitting their open 3-pointers, they're in good shape. If you figure out a way to limit Donovan Mitchell, and sometimes that's impossible. Sometimes he'll hit a shot that, by half court that you're not going to be able to stop. But if you find ways to limit him and also try to keep Darius Garland contained, I think the Knicks are in good shape.
I'm going to go quick, and I'll say, obviously, Julius Randle's health, because I think it starts with your stars in the playoffs. But beyond that, if the Knicks can draw fouls and get to the line in a way a lot of teams haven't been able to against Cleveland in the regular season, I think that'll go a big way towards helping them have success in this series. And we talked about the second chance points, offensive rebounds. That, to me, is strength versus strength. And if the Knicks can push even there or get an edge there, I think that will also allow them to have success in this series. But we're going to see starting Saturday night, 6 p.m. once we tip off. Finally, it feels like an NFL game where we've been talking about this for 10 days already. We're finally going to get to basketball Saturday, 6 p.m. That'll do it for us, everybody. We want to thank Chris Fedor. Cleveland.com does an excellent job on the Cavs. If any Knick fan wants to do their homework, check out Chris's reporting. Steph Bondy, same thing. You want to do your homework on the Knicks, check out what Steph has written lately. Does a great job in the Daily News. That is it for the Putback. We're looking forward to this series, and we will have shows throughout this series starting next week. So make sure